what I want to talk about today is the marketing side of product management. Not necessarily the stuff that that marketing team over far away has to do, but stuff that I think you really need to know to help your job as product managers. Before I introduce myself, I just want to get a sense. So, mostly enterprise product management in the room? Any startup folks?
Past lives.
Okay, couple. Product marketing? Okay, all right, good. Got a little intersection of that. All right, mostly B2B? And I assume, yep, okay, cool, that just helps. Feel free to interrupt me at any point, ask questions, especially if you feel like this is not. So, who am I? Who the heck am I? This is me in product. This is kind of fun to do, kind of go through and remember products that I've done. So I've been doing software product management and marketing for the past about 17 years. Mostly cloud, mostly enterprise, B2B, but a variety of other stuff. I was telling some folks here earlier, my first spec that I ever wrote as a newly minted MBA product manager was for Siebel's on-premise CRM system to enable customer support people at newspapers and magazines and so forth to be able to handle suspending subscriptions and moving their customer subscriptions when they moved and stuff like that. So that was back in the day, and then from there I went on to do a lot of cloud software. Salesforce came around and we're competing at Siebel with them. I worked on that on man, and I spent 7 years at Adobe helping Adobe figure out services and subscriptions and move their shrink wrap software to the cloud. Well, not move the actual apps to the cloud, but move their business to services and subscriptions, I should say. Eventually culminating in launching Adobe Creative Cloud, which was sort of represented that major transition for them. Since then, I had a little bit of left turn. I ran marketing for a company called Freshdesk, now Freshworks, as they expanded up market and moved to the US, or expanded their business in the US, and then went back to a more product role at Cloverpop, which is where I am now. It's an enterprise software startup, a Series A startup in San Francisco, where we focus on decision practices. We help companies improve their business results and innovate quickly by helping them with their decision practices. And so in between there, I've also done a bunch of consulting and advising to startups. And so through all of that, I've seen a lot of the same challenges and mistakes at a lot of companies, a lot of the same problems. Many of which I think stem from technology companies or technology-driven companies, engineering-led companies that either don't understand marketing, don't understand how to really leverage marketing, or don't maybe don't value it because of past experiences. And that's what is leading me to this presentation tonight. That's also what led me to do the obvious thing when you see a problem, you write a book, right? So I spent last year writing a book that's basically called Young Product. It's basically a startup marketing book for non-marketers. And when I say startup, it's not necessarily all venture-backed, startups. It also is applicable for startups within large companies, right? A lot of my experience was starting new products, new businesses within large companies. And basically, I interviewed 50 startup veterans, and it provides a framework for a roadmap, if you will, for taking your idea and leveraging marketing to turn it into a successful business. So that's just a little background, because I'm going to be talking about several of those concepts, several of those takeaways from those interviews and from the book for tonight. So, with that, let's get back to product. Anyone here ever launched a product and built a product that you thought was a good product, you were really proud of it, and it failed? Whatever your definition of failure is. We've got a couple of them here. All right, does anyone want to share quickly, like, what was the product, and or
software for financial advisors, and it failed for a number of reasons. Initially, it was I thought it was very good technology because it worked on various types of devices. So it was based on Essentia technology, and it would work on phones and computers and everything like that. But then one of the reasons it did not succeed is because the competitors actually were providing more value than what I was doing at the time. That was the first thing. And then the other thing was the reporting functions were not as big as the competitors. And then, of course, most importantly, I did not have enough traction with my target market in order to really even know what I was doing in order to get money and make the product better and better. So those were some of the additional challenges I had.
Okay. Well, anyone else? You got another one?
Was working on a startup that was on a mission to reinvent authentication, replacing passwords with using biometrics. But it was very focused, it was almost a philanthropic effort in many ways because it was focused on really building the standard and building the ecosystem and getting all the buy-in. And the product was really kind of a secondary piece to it. Because essentially without the agreement on standards and the device integrations, all that thing, you didn't have a product. However, vice versa, once you have such a standard, then you also don't have a product because everyone else can also replicate it. So it's a bit of a two-sided problem.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, so there's certainly a lot of reasons why products fail. Last year, CB Insights published a study where they looked at the postmortems. All the postmortems they could find, I think it was only 100 and something, but which is not perhaps, it's not the entire universe, but it's interesting to see what they found. So the top 20 reasons why startups fail, they found the top one was a lack of market need. Does that resonate? Yeah. Core marketing was also one of them. Now, lack of market need, if you sort of dig into it a little bit, can be a couple of things. It could be that they were just wrong and the market didn't need it. It could be that they didn't actually figure out how to, they didn't find the right market and maybe there is a market that needs it. It could be that they didn't figure out how to communicate the value of the product to the right market, right? So a whole bunch of things in there, but regardless, 42% is dangerously close to 50%. Like, that's a lot of products, right? And where all the heads that I see nodding, right, this happens a lot. So that's kind of what I want to dig into, because if we can reduce that, if we can keep that from happening, right, more of our products will be successful. And to my point earlier, right, this isn't just startups, right? I mean, I've seen big companies do this, right? We have a strategy. We are going to ship this product because it supports our strategy, right? It's not this customer segment that's really important to us. They need this desperately, so we're gonna ship it. It's we're gonna do this because it's our strategy, and then by hook or by crook, we're gonna figure it out, right? So in all of my interviews for the book and all the VCs that I talked to, this was one thing that they all consistently agreed on, right? Before you write down a line of code, get a statistically relevant sample of the market, right? Talk to 50, 100 or more customers. Don't do a stealth startup. The most important thing you have to do is talk to customers, right? 100%, they all agree, right? Not just one or two, not just based on your experience, but talk to lots of customers. And I particularly love this quote. If you address a market that really, really, really needs your product, you can screw up, you've got a lot of room to screw up lots of things. But if you execute really well on a product that nobody needs, you're doomed to failure, right? So if there's one thing to reduce the risk of your product, it's that. Even when, your exec's gonna tell you, you gotta build this thing, right, for the business, first thing you gotta do is start with the market. Now, if I'm you, I'm saying, well, but that's product, right? How is that marketing? No? Good, even better. I see some head shaking. I thought it was worth level setting on a definition of marketing, because every single person who I interviewed for the book, again, everyone I talked to has a slightly different version of marketing. Is it PR? Is it lead gen? What is marketing? So if you've taken any marketing classes, right, and have had any classical marketing training, back when I went to school at least, you learned about the 4 Ps, right? Product, price, promotion, and placement. Notice product is the first one, right, in marketing. Because marketing, the definition that I like anyway, is that marketing is the two-way communication with your customer. So it's every interaction that your customer has with your company. And that includes product, right? Product is core to that experience, but it's also where and how does your customer buy your product? Where and how does your customer hear about your product? Where and how does your customer get support for your product, right? It's every interaction. Yeah?
I often use that one for defining brand. Every interaction with a company is what constitutes brand.
So the definition that I like for brand is it's what your customer says about you or what people say about you when you're not in the room.
Yeah,
And so all of this stuff rolls up to create your brand, right? They're very much related. So now if that's marketing, we've got some product marketers in the room. What is product marketing? Anybody?
Make it look good. Explaining all of those things to someone.
So they're similar to marketing. I found that product marketing is different at every company. An understanding of what it is and how it works with product, what they do and when they do it, right? And very often it's a, yes, throw it over the wall.
They made it, go sell it. Tell sales how to sell it.
Exactly. Here, we finished, we defined our product, we built it, go and sell it. And by the way, give us customer service.
It's now your problem.
Exactly, it's now your problem, right?
We did the hard
What are the chances of success?
0.
Exactly, right? So takeaway number 2, right? So first off, the definition I like of product marketing is connecting your product with the market and your market with the product, right? So if marketing is the two-way communication between your company and the market or the customer, then this is specifically sort of taking that down a level. It's like for your product, it's connecting that product to a market. So it's finding that market, figuring out how to get them, what they care about and so forth, and engaging them, getting them interested, right? So my takeaway number 2, don't push it till the end, right? Marketing cannot be an afterthought. This is just the way to think, right, for those people who think about product marketing as sort of, glorified copywriters or just doing launch planning. This is the way that I sort of think about some of the key deliverables. It's not everything, and by no means does it necessarily have to be a product marketing person specifically. In most of you are at enterprise, so you probably do have product marketing people, right? In early stage startups, it's often the founder who's also the product manager, who's also the marketer, right? But the key is that, right, product marketing encompasses market research, right? Figure who is that user, right? We're talking about, focusing on that niche and understanding who are they, what do they really deeply care about, right? What's important to them, how do they behave, where do they hang out, where are you gonna find them? Maybe you can find that they hang out in places that your competitors haven't figured out, right? So you can market them there. The positioning, the messaging, all that stuff, right? All this stuff has to happen somewhere, whoever does it. And if you save it till your product is already done, then chances are you're not gonna do well. So, before I beat the horse to death, I was gonna share my product failure story. Thought it was only fair since I asked you to share yours. Anyone ever heard of CS Review or CS Live?
CS Live, yes. CS Review, no.
CS Live, yeah? Okay, you've got a good memory then. So, 2010, I was working at Adobe. I don't know how well this is gonna work because I keep gesticulating and not talking directly into it. I was working at Adobe in our creative suite business, right? Our customers were designers, creative professionals. And you probably work with designers now who will design product, and you go through multiple rounds of review and you have to mark things up in some way and give them feedback, right? And what we found with our customers is that they would go through multiple reviews and they'd often have many different reviewers, right? Often these were small businesses and they had clients who were reviewing, big companies, small companies, whatever, the clients were reviewing. And they would get back the reviews in multiple different forms. It might be email, text, make this purple, change this text, a whole list of punch list. It might be a printout of their design with big, red marks all over it, or various other things, right? Yes, could be voicemail, exactly, a phone call. And you would, if we did a bunch of research, and as we went to their offices, we would see a conference room table strewn with papers, and they're trying to reconcile all the different comments and everything and figure out exactly, and which is right, which one should I listen to? Well, this is the boss, and they say, and, right? So we created a review service. It was a cloud-based service, right, where from the app that the designer works in, right, Photoshop or InDesign, whatever, they could upload their design to the cloud, and the customer could mark it up. They could all see what everybody else had done, and it brought it back into the app that they were working in, so they could see their list of comments and everything, and they could check them off as they get them. We did the research, we knew the customers needed this, we knew what the pain was, etc. Came time to launch, and we released it as part of this suite of services called CS Live, which was part of a suite of shrink wrap applications called Creative Suite. Released every 2 years, lots of noise, lots of marketing. There on page 3, it talks about the services, and one of those services is Creative CS Review, right? And in the app, this busy app that these customers live in, there's a little button over here called CS Live, and if they press it, down here they'll find CS Review. That was problem number 1.
Wow. They never found it.
Placement.
Oops, kind of a problem. Problem number 2 is for the customers who did find it. As a designer, I live in InDesign, or I live in Photoshop, or I live in Illustrator, or whatever it is that I do my work in, Premiere. So when the new version comes out, the first thing I gotta do is, what's changed, what's moved, how am I gonna do my day job, right? Don't mess me up.
Don't mess me up.
Exactly, right? And then, oh, there's cool new stuff in here. What's new in my app? What that I gotta check out, right? And then, oh, if they find it, oh, here's a cool new service. This could be interesting with my clients, but if I'm gonna do anything that impacts my clients, right, my bread and butter, I'm gonna thoroughly test it. I'm gonna figure out what it does and what their experience is gonna be, and I'm gonna test it with a colleague, and so on and so forth. And then I'm gonna make damn sure that I have confidence that this company is gonna keep this product alive if I'm gonna introduce it with my client. You see where I'm going. So,
Foreshadowing.
Yeah, so we killed CS Live and we killed CS Review both. The good news was that we later came out with Adobe Creative Cloud and we learned a few things, right? So with Creative Cloud, it was about the services front and center, right? The marketing and everything. It was all about what the cloud was going to do for our customer. It was all about the services. And we flipped it around so you got the apps through the cloud, through the services, right? And we focused on what are the couple of things that our customers have been complaining about that we can solve for our customers so that this will all make sense and they'll want it. Because we knew there was a lot of resistance, right? Customers didn't want to move to services. They're like, but I buy my box every 2 years. I don't want to pay every month. So we had to have that value. So thankfully, this worked for good. But my takeaway anyway is that you can't just focus on the features, right? You have to figure out, when you do that early market research and ongoing, what are the barriers to discovery of your product? What are the barriers to purchase? What are the barriers to adoption? And you gotta move on. Yep.
Is it possible that part of the strategy that Adobe was going for here was, by bundling it all together, in theory, it was discoverable, purchasable, and et cetera. Like, you'd already bought it, it's already there, here's the kitchen sink, and therefore,
100%.
step-free profit.
100%, right? You get it, right? And then we'll kind of figure out the rest later. Yes, exactly. That was definitely a core piece of it. And I mean, some of it arguably was, you know what? It took a couple of years for us to move that ship, right? Adobe was 100%, every process, every person, every team, everything was optimized for shrink wrap software.
Well,
So we probably needed that time to move and figure out what the heck this services stuff was, and how do we change our IT, how do we change our billing, how do we change everything about what we do, how do we change our processes for delivering software, how do we change our marketing, right?
Was some part of this also about, Photoshop and Illustrator are, as shrink wrap software, we're not inexpensive pieces of software. And so, was there a portion of the pressure, I guess, on product and product marketing of more things to justify the continued value of spending, $2K or whatever every 2 to 3 years until that transition had happened where you were getting recurring revenue from services?
Well, maybe sort of, but it was very much about, we know what's happening, we can see what's happening, and we can see that our business is gonna have to move to services and move to subscriptions. And there's stuff we can't do in a box. I mean, if you think about the CS Review, right? You can't do stuff like that in the box, right? We knew there were all of these workflows that happened in between the boxes, and that was an opportunity, right? It was an opportunity for someone else, or it was an opportunity for us, right? So it was all of those things, trying to kind of figure out how to get from here to there, but we knew we had to get there. Yeah, so doesn't matter how cool your features are, if the customer can't find it, buy it, and use it. So related to that, I was going to share another product story. This is where I work currently. So, as I mentioned, Cloverpop is a startup. We focus on decision practices. When I joined the company, this is what our website looked like. The product focused on helping companies with the process of making decisions, right? So currently, you work at companies, I'm gonna guess you spend a lot of time in meetings, trying to make decisions, right? If you're like me and how I used to be, you spend a lot of your day in those meetings, and then at night you're trying to do the other part of your job, right? So we focused on, we provided software that could help facilitate and improve those decisions. So you could frame up a decision, get input from people without having a meeting, get people aligned to make a decision, and get that decision made and shared out so people knew that the decisions were right? And you can track those decisions. We had a couple of challenges, right? We're following the typical Silicon Valley model for SaaS software. And we had a couple of challenges. The first one is, has anyone here built software that forces customers to change their processes?
It doesn't work.
Not very well.
Change is hard, right? That was problem number one. Problem number two is enterprise software sales. Long sales cycles.
2 years.
Add to that category creation.
You don't exist yet.
I have when I talk to people about decision practices and decision making, everybody nods their head like, oh my God, it's making decisions, right? But getting people from there to, oh, there could be a solution to it, and maybe we don't have to do things this way. To, oh, maybe I should invest in the software solution. Maybe there could be a software solution that could help me, and oh, let's look at buying that, right? Like there's 7 steps, right? So we figured out a few things along the way, and added some tools and capabilities to help us with those challenges, right? So we added training to help with the change management stuff, right? Because we gotta help people figure out what they actually need to be doing, right? People, process, and technology, right? Software alone isn't gonna actually change companies. We added training. And then we also used, that cool market research that we talked about at the beginning. Well, we have all of this market research that we've done about decision-making at companies. And we were able to use it to create a diagnostic that's really cool. So we can go into companies and have their executive teams take a 5-minute survey. And we can help them pinpoint, identify, well, of all of the different challenges around decision-making, because there are a bunch of different ones, and not every company has the same ones, right? We can help them pinpoint what their greatest challenges are, so we can map out actually a way to help them. So we packaged all that up, right? We give you the software, and we're also gonna do all this other stuff. We're gonna do an assessment, and so we can figure out what your problems are, and then we can provide customized training and the software to help you to do this. And our customers who are doing that, we're doing really well and adopting the software and getting benefits and all that stuff. But there's still the sales problem, right? That's still a big problem. So our next aha was, maybe this current Silicon Valley model is wrong, right? We have venture funding and we're a software company, and that's our view of the world because we've always done software. Maybe we're not purely a software company. I mean, we still build software, but who's to say that it all has to be bundled in the name of the software? What if we break it all apart, right? Getting a customer from here to there takes a while and is hard. But what if we just start with an assessment, right? It helps customers figure out what their problem is, if that they have a problem, right? And that they have a problem. And so for the person inside the company who's going, yes, I need this, but I have to sell it to my boss and my coworkers because they all have to do it with me, it gives them the ammunition to be able to do that. And then, we can also provide the training, and we can also provide the software, or whatever it is that they need, right? This is actually a pretty fundamental paradigm shift. So this is Cloverpop now, right? You see the difference?
Yeah, the number one difference I was looking for was, how many of you are saying, oh, my company can't make decisions, that's my biggest problem, versus how much time do I have to spend in meetings? So if you don't get to that emotional impact of, I have to sit in a meeting where nothing got done, then you don't resonate.
Yeah, so we're gonna get to that in a minute.
Okay.
Right? So, my first point before I get to that one is the last, back to the last point about you gotta help customers, right? So they can purchase it, they can discover it, and adopt it. But the other thing is about agility, right? We talk about agile with product management. Just as true with marketing and go-to-market, right? We gotta be constantly testing and learning. Marketing has a bad reputation for spending tons of money to, wasting it, right? And there being no results, right? But if you're starting your marketing early, then when you're learning about product and what's working and what's not working, you can also be testing your messaging and your positioning, and you could be learning about the customer and what their pain points are, and you could be learning about the customer and where they go, where they spend time, and all that stuff. And you have to be constantly paying attention and figuring out what's working, what's not working, what else can I try, how can I improve it, and so forth, right? And even for the stuff that's working, you gotta keep testing it because there may at some point be diminishing returns. That all make sense? So, my last point. Anyone here working customer support software?
Done it in the
So I used to work in customer support software. I did a little quick survey of landscape. There are a lot of players in the customer support space. These are just a few of the websites that I found. What do you see? Any of them stand out? Any of them look particularly interesting to you?
No. Color blue, word communication.
Right?
Communication. And
One has a human.
yeah, yeah, that's.
Smart customer communication, customer support software, customer service software, multi-channel help desk, omni-channel communication platform.
None of them speak to like the problem.
Sorry?
Don't really speak to the problem.
Yes, marketing working overtime, right? Blah, 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 blah. They all look the same, right? I'm sorry if I offend you here. I'm a product manager too. Nobody cares about your features, right? They don't care about your features, okay? Yes, your customer who's using your product and doesn't have a feature that they really want, they care about your features, right? And at the end of the day, when they get down to that evaluation stage of the product, they care about your features. But if your website is that, eeny, meeny, miny, moe, catch a tiger by the toe, I mean, how am I gonna pick one, right? Now let's look at a company that broke out in this space. What do you see there? Does it look like the others? Businesses are made of relationships. Zendesk brings companies and their customers closer together. And what I didn't capture was the video that went with that. I don't know if you've been on their site, but it starts with this woman sort of far back and moves closer and closer and closer until her face is smushed up against the glass so close to you. Right? I mean, it talks about what the value is, and they're fun and they're funny, right? In the space, they're probably the one company that you've ever heard of, right? So, what's the takeaway? Tell the story, right? Engage your customer. It's about the benefits. Don't start with the features. Who is your customer? What do they care about? What are their problems? How can you solve their problems in a way, hopefully, that nobody else can? Take them on the journey with you. And, by the way, right, first of all, the extent you can focus, right? If your customer is startups, if your customer is enterprise companies, it's going to be really hard to pinpoint that pain point and everything, right? You got to start now, especially if you're starting out, right? Especially if you're a startup, you got to start somewhere where you can really focus in and really solve their pain and then branch out from there. So focus in, who's the customer, and with respect to the pain, if the problem you're solving is like, I could take aspirin for it, aspirin level pain, or if I take a vitamin, it'll go away. Yeah, maybe you'll get lucky, but you really gotta find that Vicodin level pain, right? I'm like, oh my God, I need serious pain medication to solve this problem, right? If you find that, that's a business. Or, the opposite version of that is if you can really make your customers super happy, right? It's provide that aphrodisiac, right? Provide that, the ecstasy or whatever. That works too. But it's that extreme If you can find that thing, and you can tell that story and dig into that emotion and that pain, that's when you have business. So,
I also
Yeah.
wonder, I'm curious from others in the room, because I feel it sometimes as well. I don't know if you get cranky when you haven't talked to customers in a while, but there is this, when you're trying to write whether it's a spec or a piece of marketing or whatever, this uneasiness when you feel like you're just making up bullshit. Like, is that just me?
No.
Okay, and you know, it says, I've learned over time to recognize that actually that is me saying to myself subconsciously, you actually don't know the problems that these people have. You're just kind of theorizing about them, like, and it ends up with like that kind of bad stuff, like, they care about communication because everyone else is talking about communication or whatever it is, right? How do you break out of that, I guess is my question. What are the tools and tricks that you have used to, I guess, force yourself out of your comfort space, or potentially your management out of their comfort space with, like, we just gotta get this stuff, get the collateral done, get the product done, get the, you know, the things out.
and I probably should give this to you here.
Yeah.
So you've really done your job right, which of course you would, right? You've done this research up front, you know what really, really hurts, and you designed your product around it. So your marketing messages are ready to be written before your product is ready to go to market.
Amen.
Wonderful idea. However.
But it's really hard to convince your management to do it that way.
Yeah. Well, the other piece of that, and I will, the other thing that I found is, we did a great job of this at Adobe, and I've tried to sort of bring it to other places, is when we went on customer visits, I tried to bring, you know, someone from all the different disciplines. So I brought engineering, like you can bring engineering and design and product and marketing, and you can all hear from the customers together. Not only does it help with that end marketing messaging and stuff, but I find it helps a lot with those conversations when you're debating features, right? Remember when Jane said blah, 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 right? And when you hear the engineering team go, no, I don't think so because, you know, Bob said that. Yes, it worked, right? Those are the debates I wanna have with my engineering team. But yeah, you have to be at a company or whatever, have enough control over budget and whatever that you can do that, because there is a cost to it, and a time cost as well as a money cost. But I have the same thing. Like, I don't know what they would do. I need to talk to a customer. I'm writing a feature and I have no idea if it'll work.
Piggybacking on Karen's, one of the best pieces of advice is write the press release before you build the product. If you can't write the press release,
You don't know what.
you got an issue. So that's a trigger that you're onto a hypothesis. Now it's time to go collect some data, test the hypothesis, and so forth.
Would you attribute something more or something specific to products that work very well on a certain platform and they don't do well on another platform? For example, I worked on this product that gained a lot of momentum on web, but then we failed on mobile. And we didn't follow a lot of these, and that's why it picked up on web, but anything specific that wouldn't work on a platform?
Well, I mean, it could be a number of things, right? I mean, it could be a matter of where your customers are,
Right.
right? And that's sort of the simple, obvious one. It could be about whatever your feature set is and that they don't work in
Yeah.
mobile. Depending on what it is, it could be something people don't do, you know, they don't tend to do in mobile, or they do it, you know, in
Yeah.
one and not the other.
Which
Different use
platform,
cases.
which variant of which platform, which marketplace is it in? Who's how many people are competing with it? And there's a lot of
Yeah.
different things.
Yeah, I mean, there could be another way that they do it in mobile. I mean, there's sort of any number
Yeah.
without.
No, we had to revamp the entire product to make it work. So, yeah.
Did you figure out how to,
Yes.
so what, did you figure out what the problem was?
Yeah, it was a bunch of things. It was more than one thing.
Mhm.
Originally the product wasn't tailored for mobile. It was bloated, super stuffed like it was on the web. That wasn't, I think one of the points said that it was very unfriendly for customers, for mobile customers.
Yes.
Wasn't catered. And then we didn't market it well for mobile customers. It was hidden somewhere on the website. So those kind of
Yep. Well, it's funny because after the fact, you're like, "Ah,
I could
Of course,
relate to
right?
what you.
yeah, yeah. Sure. Here, start.
I actually have a comment that I'd like to share. I do agree that one of the ways to make sure your product is successful is to clearly understand pain point of your target user or customers. On the other hand, some of the really groundbreaking products that have come into the market did not exist before, and that's another approach too. An extreme example, if I was to take in this regard is, first there was no light bulb, and then there was light bulb. And when there was light bulb, people started using it, and then everybody wondered, how did we live without it?
Yeah.
Right? That's, like I said, extreme example, and if you go down that path, I believe you are pretty close to insanity, because it takes tremendous amount of courage to pursue that. But if you do succeed, you just made a history forever.
Yeah.
So that's another path, and that's why I'm a little bit hesitant in my own experience to constantly look for that pain point. Sometimes stop worrying about pain point and see what independent of that can you do that might change. There is very high degree of failure there, possibility of failure.
So, and just, if I may, I'll come on over here, pass this on, but, I think my take would be, even with those people saw something in the market, right? And yes, I mean, you take Steve Jobs and the, iPad or whatever. There's still market insight there.
Yeah.
And yes, I mean, there's huge risk. I mean, even any kind of category creation, there is huge risk of failure, but it's, I would argue that it's insight, that it is understanding a pain point. It's not necessarily an obvious like, oh, companies have to support their customers and their customers aren't happy, so they need a way to support them, right? Something that sort of exists in some kind of other solution today.
Okay.
But it is still some insight about people and some pain points and, or how their lives could be better.
I have a perfect example of this. So there was an article talking, it was an engineer who'd been involved in the MacBook. And he was talking about they finished the prior MacBook iteration, and they were all being brought together to meet with Jobs, and they were going to present all the various thoughts of what they wanted to do for the next version, et cetera, et cetera. Jobs came in, and he had an iPad and the current generation of the MacBook Pro. And the MacBook was in sleep, and he basically sat there and he sort of hit the button, waited for it to wake up, put it to sleep again, hit the button, looked how long it took to wake up. And he turned to his iPad, and he went off, on, off, on. He said, make this like that, and he left. That was the meeting.
Perfect.
So, say what you will, right? That was a very laser-focused piece of insight, which was, hey, people are using this portable device. There's a huge barrier to them using it, is every time they want to go and use it, they have to sit around and twiddle their thumbs. We seem to have solved it on this other thing.
Yep.
Fix it.
Fix it.
Make it happen.
Yeah.
Thanks, good meeting, see you later.
Yeah. You were waiting.
I try to make it very easy. So a couple of things.
Yeah. Here.
There are a bunch of studies looking at successful versus failed products. And the common denominator is that the products that succeed, the common denominator is that they spend the majority of their time before even the first line of code written. And by looking at market research, customer needs, positioning, messaging, press release. If you do all those things before you start the product, you have much higher success than and most companies. Yeah, I know what I'm doing. I've been in talked with so many startups and says we have marketing. No, why? Oh, because we know what to build. And to me, that's the sign that means that you're not going to.
We can't afford marketing, we need to spend money on the engineers to build the product.
We'll do that later.
Yeah.
We'll get
So
to it.
there's a
After we build the product and
misunderstanding.
nobody.
There's a misunderstanding. One other thing is about being, I call it customer intimacy. You have to be intimate with your customer. But there is also something that is a little dangerous in the sense that if you ask them what they want, they might send you to the wrong place.
Totally.
I'm sure you're all familiar with the Innovators, the remote book, one of our favorites. If you listen to your customers, you go out of business. So the example I use is don't ask them what they want. Be like a doctor and a patient. You know, when you go to a doctor looks at the patient, measure the, the blood pressure, the temperature, blah, 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 and based on that, come give diagnosis. So the same thing with customer. Don't tell them what you want. See what challenges they're facing. What's the
Their problems are.
What's the problem? What competition is doing to them? And then based on those feedback, come back with your product requirements and so on.
And I would just add to that they're gonna tell you what they want. They're gonna tell you the features they want, right? That it's our job to be a little bit, I don't know, psychoanalyst or the doctor or whatever, and go, okay, they're asking for this, what's behind that, right? The
Yes.
why question, right? That's how you figure it out.
Sorry for being insistent to
Oh, no.
keep raising my hand, because I want to build up on what the gentleman said. And this is perhaps a little bit more scientific discussion, if you will. There are these categories of products, especially on the startup, technology startup, that don't seem to work if you first go to market and see what the market is. And perhaps there is this concept, and we don't have a label for this concept, which is not product, not market, but something in between. If there is a word for it, I would be glad to hear what it might be. But to make it a little bit more concrete, you quoted Andy Reckler, right? He has a 45-second video, if you're interested. It's when he was teaching at Stanford Business School, right? And he talks about technology startups. If they go to the market and look at what the market wants, that normally in his work, it's not my work, so be patient with me. He says that would normally lead to mundane businesses, because everybody can do that. So those products that, like the light bulb maybe, come and sort of take over the world, are the ones that are based on some inflection point in technology. And someone, somehow, has that foresight and inspiration to go and build a product and know that customers want it. How do we deal with those situations?
So, I mean, I think that's the thing, it's not necessarily that the customer is asking for that thing, they're not asking for your widget, it's that insight, right? It's that identification of a pain. It's finding some insight, ideally, that nobody else has figured out yet, right?
Exactly.
They haven't figured out how to solve. But I think you're right, like there's there's other products in the space, but they haven't figured out how to do it this way, or there's just, nobody's solving this, right? But it's a pain that everyone has. Everybody sits in meetings all day long and can't get their jobs done. Can we solve that for them, right?
And the nature of this type of products, this category of products, is that there is going to be failure.
Totally.
And
Yeah.
if they accept that, then some of them will succeed and lead to good things.
Yeah, and I mean, that happens all over the place. I mean, even back to our example about the iPad, right? I mean, Jobs came out with the new first, right?
Yep.
And then,
Timing matters.
yeah, it's, timing, it may be product, it's, probably also how they positioned it, what they positioned it for, right?
So that thing about asking customers not what they want, but what their problems are, it actually goes beyond that, because a lot of times they won't even articulate something that is a problem, but they're just used to it, used to putting up with the pain, and they either may not recognize that the technology could solve that, or they haven't even figured, nobody's paid enough attention to that thing that, why are you doing that 7 different ways before you do that? Oh, that's just the way it works. And they put up with that, and they go, well, what if you could do it in 1 step? That's possible? And those are the kind of insights that often lead to the big breakthrough.
Yeah, oh, perfect. Right, and that's the thing, so someone asked about this before, right? You know, there's talking to customers, the more you can actually go and observe, right? Like, follow them around for a day. I mean, the best insights that I've ever had have been when I go to my customer's office and see how they work, right? See them with all of their, you know, review, you know, all of their designs strewn across the conference room table and how they're going through all that stuff, right? That's when you really get the ahas. Making you wait.
So I'm wondering if there is a case where there is a good argument for doing things that maybe don't solve the customer problem, but to Jim's thing, it's the way that they've done things before in the past, and continuing to do that is necessary to make the leap, right? So the example I'm thinking of is most people don't realize that, like, cars, you know, the old joke about, you know, being a buggy whip manufacturer for the car, right? Do you want a faster horse, or do you want a car?
Right.
Most people don't realize that, like, after cars came out, most cars were still equipped with, like, a buggy whip holder, right? Which had no purpose in a car, but clearly it was in some part an evaluation criteria, if only for historical reasons. So I'm trying to think of what the analog is in current products. It's like features that aren't features, that don't do things, but they're there so that they give you the warm fuzzies.
Right, they just make you feel comfortable with making that transition.
And I'm trying to, I can't spot one. Anyone had to build something that didn't actually do anything to make people buy it anyway?
No, but I was just thinking, like, with an IP phone, people are so used to dial tone and stuff that they put a dial tone on,
Yeah.
but there's no,
Yep.
they didn't need it. I mean, your cell phone doesn't have dial tone.
But it
Yeah.
made it.
The
like-
click sound by your camera on
Yeah.
your smartphone.
Yeah.
Why does it go click? Well, that's what the analog camera used to do.
Because it doesn't have
Yeah.
a shutter, right? It doesn't need.
Yeah, it doesn't have a synthesizer.
Yeah.
Those are two good examples, I like that.
That's a good.
I think earlier you implied that for B2B, there's a higher chance of having product marketers versus B2C. Did you imply that? And if so, please
For
explain.
bigger companies, that you might actually, I think that was what I was suggesting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
In startups, you know, at some point, maybe in the future, they hire them, but early on, you know, they don't usually have them.
I tended to talk about 10 years ago where a guy formally studied that, and he said it's about 1,000 people where they split the role between product manager and then split it out to product marketing.
Yeah. In B2C, do you work in B2C?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be curious if you want to share sort of what your experience is there. I don't know if you're going to ask the question.
I don't have a good answer to that. I'm like e-commerce, B2C e-commerce, so the product is like e-commerce platform, so we don't need marketing for that. It's like the platforms
So,
and products.
well, and so that's why I was asking, because my experience with B2C is that a lot of this marketing stuff is sort of innate for the product manager, because you generally have to do marketing, right? That the lessons of having marketing in the product and so forth, I think came earlier than with B2B, right? Because B2B was more sort of, you know, on-premise and boxes and selling it and so forth, and with apps and stuff like that, right? That understanding that you gotta keep your customer, you gotta engage them and, you know, speak to them and all that stuff. I think it's just been more sort of innate within the product. But yeah, there is a product marketer function in my experience, it's just different. Any other questions, comments?
Well, wonderful, thanks so much, Jill.